Okay, pre-cal students, we're looking at lesson 11.4, solving trig equations using a calculator. So, solve each equation by graphing for all x's where x is between 0 and 2 pi. Draw a graph, round answers to 3 decimal places. So you can see I made myself a table here. I put in x values of 0, pi halves, pi, 3 pi halves, and 2 pi to help me graph this. So sine of 0 is 0, sine of pi halves is 1, sine of pi is 0. Sine of 3 pi halves is -1, and 2 pi is 0. So multiply each of those by 2.5, and I have that. So I'm at 0, 0. At pi halves, I'm at 2.5. At pi, I'm back to 0. At 3 pi halves, I'm at -2.5. And at 2 pi, I'm back to 0. I'm going to connect this with a... and remember, we're only looking between 0 and 2 pi, so it's really as far as I need to go here. So there's my graph for the left side of the equation, 2.5 sine x, and now for the right side, I'm -1. So here's where y equals -1. So I'm just going to draw myself a horizontal line. And I can see that I've got two good solutions here, it looks like. So we're going to find the answers to this actually on the calculator. So I've set up, let me just show you what I've done. I set up the window. I went negative pi halves for my x minimum. I went 2.5 pi, 2.5 pi for my max. And then I'm putting a little mark for every pi halves. And then my y min is from -5 to 5, just kind of like the graph we're looking at. And the scale, y scale is 1. Okay? So I'm going to go to y1, and I'm going to put the left side of the graph, 2.5 sine x. Remember that you need to be in radians. My calculator is already in radians, but you should be in radians. -1 for my y2. And it should look a lot like I have here. In fact, it's even in blue and red, just like mine. And so I'm looking for this point of intersection and this point of intersection. So I'm going to hit second, trace, and I want intersect number 5. And I'm going to move my cursor close to the point of intersection here. It's asking for the first curve is y1. I'll say enter. Second curve is y2. I'm going to say enter. That's all we have, and so we really don't have an issue here. Press enter on guess, and it comes back and says the intersection is sorry, I can't read this very well. 3.553. All right, now I'm going to move over and find the second one. Second trace, number 5 again. And I'm going to move close to the second point of intersection over in here. I'm going to press enter 3 times, but press enter. And this time I get 5.872. And so there's my answers for number 1. Okay? Number 2. 4 cosine 1/2 x equals 3. So I put in 0 pi halves, pi, 3 pi halves, and 2 pi for my 1/2 x, which means I would have to multiply that by 2 to get x. That means my x value here is pi. Pi times 2 is 2 pi. This would be 3 pi, and this would be 4 pi. But really, I don't need to go any further than 2 pi because that's really I only want the answers between 0 and 2 pi. So cosine of these values, cosine of 0 is 1, cosine of pi halves is 0, cosine of pi is -1. And then I multiply those times 4, I get 4, 0, and -4. So at 0 I'm at 4. At pi halves, which for x this is pi, at pi I'm at 0. And then at 2 pi, I'm at -4. So, trying to get a nice curve here, this is going to be going down. So I only have half of a period here because my period is now 4 pi. All right? And then my y equals 3, the right side gives me this horizontal line. And so here's my point of intersection. It looks like it's pretty close to pi halves here, pretty close. Not exactly on pi halves, but pretty close to pi halves according to my graph. So let's see what we get here. 4, let me clear this off. 4 cosine I'm going to use 0.5 instead of 1/2 x, and then clear this and put a 3. So here we go. You can see I'm only going to get from +4 down to -4 at 2 pi here. And there's my -3. I only have the 1 point of intersection. So second trace 5. I'm going to move up here close to it. 1, 2, 3 times on the enter. And I get x equals 1.445. Alrighty? Alright, let's try this again. I forgot to do my shift on the last time I did this. I have a -2 shift here. So here's what I did. I put in 0, pi halves, pi, 3 pi halves, and 2 pi. When I multiplied times 2, I've got 2x here, so I multiplied all my x values times 2. I've got pi, I've got 2 pi, 3 pi, and 4 pi. Well, all of those just give me zeros, right? Sine of 0 is 0, sine of pi is 0, sine 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi is 0. So I'm going to get halfway in between. So if I put in pi fourths for x, I get pi halves here, which gives me 1. And 1 times 3 is 3. If I put in 3 pi fourths, I have 3 pi halves, which gives me -1, and -1 times 3 is -3. Now I'm going to shift this down 2. So here's my new center of the graph. So starting at 0, 0 would be right here, and then I'm going to go to pi fourths and go up to 3. 1, 2, 3 would be right here. And then at pi halves, I'm back to 0, and then at 3 pi fourths, I'm at 1, 2, 3 down here, and then pi, I'm back to 0, and at next fourths, 1, 2, 3 up. Back to 0, and then 1, 2, 3 down, and back to 0. So that gives me it's moving pretty quick. It's changing pretty quickly because that 2x means that my period is now pi instead of 2 pi. All right, for the other part, it's just -3 cosine x. I can just use the x, 0 pi halves, pi, 3 pi halves. You know, cosine of 0 is 1. Cosine of pi halves is 0. -1 for pi, 0. 1 for pi. Multiply by -3. And so it's inverted upside down, which makes this not as easy to do as I thought it was going to be because of the shift down. All right, so I can see I'm crossing right here. And it looks like I'm crossing down here. That looks like it. Those look like the only 2 places of intersection. We'll see when we graph it. But it looks like just 2 points of intersection. So, 3 sine 2x, close my parentheses, -2. Oops, I put that on the wrong line, but that's okay. -3 cosine x. All right, so it's going to do my curves will be reversed here. So this is my -3 cosine 2x. And this is my 3 sine 2x minus 2. So this intersection point is to the left of the x-axis. I don't have to worry about that. I do have an intersection point there, and then I've got another one down here. Okay, and that looks like it. So, second trace number 5. I'll get close to this point, hit enter 3 times, and I'm getting 1.343. Okay, just shy of pi halves. Second trace 5. Now I'm moving down here. 1, 2, 3 times, and my intersection point is 6.120. And there we go. Those are my 2 points of intersection. Okay? All right, last problem. This one, solve number 1 using inverse functions. Okay, 2.5 sine x equals -1. So first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 2.5, -1 divided by 2.5 here. Now I'm going to take the inverse of both sides. X equals inverse sine of -1, 2.5. So I'm going to actually change this to a positive 1 over 2.5 to find my inverse, my reference angle. And we are talking about radians. Go to my home screen. Second mode will always take you to the home screen. Inverse sine of 1 divided by 2.5, and I'm getting 0.412. 0.412. All right. So x then, I want a negative value for x. X is a sine value. We're a sine, and so we're talking about third and fourth quadrants. So x is going to be pi plus 0.412. And my second value will be, for the fourth quadrant, 2 pi minus 0.412. So pi plus 0.412 gives me 3.554. And then 2 pi minus 0.412 gives me 5.871. So I'm getting 3.554. 5.871. Okay, I'm off by my last digit simply because of rounding here. And I was wondering about that since it was 4115. That was a possibility that would be off. But yeah, I'm good to the thousandth anyway. I'm good down to I'm within one digit on the thousandth. Okay? All right. A little bit more practice of graphing. It's been a while since we've done the graphing of the equations, but hopefully you can figure that out. But let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye.